All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Leadership Forum webinar for July 6th. Appreciate you all joining us on, for many, it's kind of a holiday week. Just checking here quick before we get started on a couple of items. Somebody had their hand up. Shannon. All right, if there's a question for anybody, please feel free to put that in the question box in the control panel. And I just want to double check with my guest, Robin. Robin, is the audio and visual set okay for us to get started?
It is, I see it just fine, thank you.
All right, perfect. All right, thanks again for joining us for this Leadership Forum webinar. I am your host, Mark Anderson, Chief Client Officer here at Eldermark. There is my contact information should you want to contact me about anything to do with this webinar series or anything else about Eldermark. These webinars are regularly scheduled and they are set up. You know, this is something for those of you that are somewhat new. We set these up as another way to support our customers during the pandemic. And they are focused around things that would be pertinent for leadership positions within our senior living customers, to share information, to learn about technology solutions that can help us achieve our goals as senior living leaders, to share information and other resources relevant to our work, and certainly around more current events or concerns to make things timely, and basically just to support each other in our work. Just a couple reminders, please, before we get going today. If you have any key staff changes that we should know about here at Eldermark, please do send those to support@eldermark.com so that we can keep your account information current and updated, especially around, again, all the workforce turnover issues. We want to be sure that we stay connected to you and your colleagues there in your communities. And then be sure to read the release notes that we sent out. Watch for those and read those so that you are up to date on our most recent stuff. And about updates, just to reintroduce, as I did last month, some of the things that are newest here at Eldermark. We have finished an integration with infection control and antibiotic stewardship management software called ABX Tracker. I believe they are rebranding this to Peerlytics software. But if you're interested in learning more about any of these updates, let me know, or let someone that you work with here at Eldermark know, and we can connect you to that information. We've also recently launched an integration to Yardi Financials that will connect your billing module to the Yardi Financial system. Just to reemphasize our integration with the eMenu Choice point of sale and dining services management software. It says here soon to include new menus. They actually do have a new menu system called Fresh Menus. And I happen to personally know the chefs that created those, and I can attest as one who has eaten their food. The menus are awesome and very appropriate for good menu planning, production, and quality food service around the menus to offer your resident customers. And then finally, our integration with the Engage social engagement app, a complete social engagement software system that connects your activities, calendars, and participation records to residents' engagement in your life enrichment programming. The system involves and includes a number of data reports and analytics. There's a family portal connection feature there in the app as well. It's becoming a very popular offering here from Eldermark. So again, if you want to learn anything more about these, let one of us know and we can arrange for you to have a demo or just a discovery meeting to learn a little bit more. Our usual notes before we begin our presentation today. You will all remain muted during our presentation. Please use the question feature in the control panel if you should have a question or comment to share, and we'll be sure to get to those as time permits during the session today. After we adjourn, you will receive a link to the recording of this webinar in an email so that you have access to that to share with colleagues and or watch again at your leisure. And of course, you're always welcome to contact myself or any of our presenters directly via email after our presentation for additional questions or anything else that you would like to learn that our presenters have presented during these webinars. All right, getting on to today's topic then. We are going to visit the embracing of electronic payments for the senior living customer and talk about some strategies for the senior living consumer experience. And so within our outline discussion today, and by the way, for the first time, we are going to go on camera today, which we have never done in these before, because this is going to be a very discussion-oriented webinar today. So we are going to go on camera for just the presenters, not the attendees. And so within that, we're going to talk about this trend to electronic payments and a little bit of discussion on consumer expectations today around electronic payment systems. We are going to discuss some of the solutions that electronic payment systems deliver for both the consumer and the provider business entity. And then importantly too, I want to dispel some of the e-payment myths around security and processing fees and barriers of access to this kind of technology, helping explain how easy these systems are to access and to use efficiently. And so within all of this, our guest presenter is Robin Jameson, my colleague here at Eldermark. She's our general manager for our ePay solutions. And so thank you, Robin, for joining us today. I am going to work here to stop sharing my screen and get us on camera. So give me a moment there. All right, so I just want to confirm, is what you see on the webinar screen today our cameras?
Yes, that's what you see. That's what I see.
Okay, perfect. So if you are not seeing us on camera and you are a participant, please put something in the chat box so that we know. Otherwise, you will just be hearing the audio. And as interesting as that might be, visually, it's not that interesting. So thanks a million, Robin, for being able to join us today. We have a secret surprise guest that we'll be bringing in here shortly to join our discussion too. One of our customers that Robin's been working with on ePay is going to join us today, and very appreciative and excited to include that mystery guest today on this webinar. So all that said, Robin, let's get right into our discussion today and maybe kind of help us understand, where are we at with customer expectations around electronic payments and, common practices around that consumers kind of look for or expect. And is that kind of changing our culture around electronic payments and how we think about that?
Yeah, so the way we collect has changed quite a bit over the past couple of years. I think we're starting to see our communities treat themselves as a business. And that's not the way it's always been in the past. You're always there to serve your population, your community, and be there for them, but you haven't put getting paid for those services on the front end. And so we're starting to see a massive shift in that, which is very exciting because you are a business and we want you to get paid like a business. We want you to be successful. And part of the way you're successful is if you're able to collect your own money that you're making. We're finding all too often that communities are not thriving because they don't have a good collections process on the back end or on the front end. And we're really moving our communities away from that by trying to reshape the best practice of delivery, the best practice of collection. But then a lot of our communities are reaching out to us because they see now it's imperative that this collection process becomes so much easier, more like a day-to-day operations that they're used to. And even, a lot of our communities will say, our residents move in from a place where they're paying their mortgage on a monthly basis. Why wouldn't we collect our from our residents the same way as they are before they move into our community? Why take a step backwards on how they collect and how often they pay? Why not keep that momentum going and keep them on the same path of paying their bills on a monthly basis, or auto deducting those payments, and really moving them into a community that's much easier to manage than it is to, now I'm moving to a community where I have to cut a check every month, and oh goodness, I forgot to cut a check. I mean, I forget to cut a check. So we're really seeing that change, and it's really great to see.
Yeah, well, and I was thinking about this talking to a customer recently, and they were like, yeah, why would I ask my resident customers to buy a box of checks just to pay their bill here at our community when they're so used to paying, electronic elsewhere?
That's right.
So, some of that convenience is kind of obvious, but what are some of the benefits, for if I'm not only a senior living resident, but what are some of the benefits of kind of getting more towards e-payments versus, the other paper-based and more manual systems?
Yeah, so this is, we're excited to have Lori on the phone call today. She's our surprise guest, and so thank you, Lori. Please jump in anytime as you can speak to your experiences as well, because getting the customer and the community feedback is always very important. But one of the things we're seeing is they want to get their money paid faster. They want to have, why make billing a monthly or big headache every month? And I see Lori just showed herself. So, hey, Lori, wonderful. Thank you again.
Lori Weinke, thank you for joining us. I'm going to have Robin introduce you formally here in a moment too, because we want people to know who you are and who you represent and so on. So thank you so much, Lori.
Yeah, and please, Lori, like I said, interrupt and share what your experiences are. But we're seeing that, they want to take that work effort off and not make your monthly collection, your monthly rent, your monthly stipend, whatever, to be such a headache, and really automate those processes. And that's where, utilizing our billing solution and utilizing ePay really come and then work hand in hand. We really want you to be able to set up your community members once and forget it. We don't want this to be a heavy lift monthly. And we see a lot of organizations that believe in this so much that they have put, cost onto their consumer, their residents, because they say, if you're not going to set up for auto pay, then I'm going to charge you a monthly fee because it costs us so much money to do this. And Lori, what do you think?
It does. We did when we first decided to go electronic 100%. We did give our option, or our residents the option also to pay if they wanted to continue sending in checks, then they would incur a $25 processing fee. So most of them have switched over, and it's a learning curve for the families and their residents. And I think we're kind of getting past that learning curve a little bit. So it is getting easier and easier each month to work with.
Good. And when we enrolled you, you guys had already done some ACH collections, is that right? And we were able to take that tokenized file to keep that secure and bring that in, so it wasn't, you didn't have to call each resident again to get that information. You were able to bring them over pretty seamlessly. Is that correct?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
Our previous company was not able to supply that file timely for us. So we did have to end up manually entering in all of that information again. But now that we have it entered in, things are going smoothly. So the onboarding process was a little cumbersome, but thanks to Eldermark, they were able to get us through it because we enrolled 8 communities at once. So there was a lot of work involved, but Eldermark was there to support us all the way.
Well, good. And that's one thing that if you run into issues, obviously, Lori, anytime in the future, you let us know immediately. We want to make sure you have everything you can, and you need to be successful. And so for those on the call, if you are currently using, so what we were just talking about with Lori is that she was not able to get a tokenized file from their vendor. But we're really looking at different ways to make this a more easy transition, whether you're collecting somewhat today or you're not collecting at all today, is we're here to help you with that transition and migration into ePay, to make that not a heavy lift on you guys, to where we can really get you to using the ePay solution to collect money, within 5 business days. And so what Lori actually experienced on the enrollment process, we've actually fine-tuned a little bit, Lori. So if you bring on 8 more communities, it'll be a lot easier next time. So we're really trying to streamline those processes. And groups like Lori. And Lori, do you mind introducing yourself real quick in your role and your company?
I work with District Prairie Communities. We have 8 assisted living communities that I'm their revenue cycle manager. So I do all of their billing and their collections as far as submitting the ACH files and whatnot. So.
She's the awesome one. And after you all got enrolled, you guys, this is just your 2nd month going into ePay. I believe that's right. After the first month, I got a phone call from our client success manager and Lori's client success manager, Tammy. And Tammy had said that your CFO had called and said, "Where'd all this money come from?" And so I just thought that was just a funny story, and it was a great tell that even if you are using ACH payments today, you're likely not getting that lump sum deposit the way we work, which is we really try to make sure that if you're going to do automatic processing, that if you select on the 5th day of the month, that money will be in your bank on the 6th day of the month. It's a 24-hour deposit time frame. So even groups that are currently using ACH or other deposit mechanisms, they typically don't see the same benefit that you see when you're on ePay, when you see that massive lump sum come in your bank and you're like, wow, all my collections are mostly done. Is that fairly true, Lori?
It is, yes.
Yeah, and it was such a funny story when Tammy called me to tell me about what your CFO said, and I just thought it was hilarious.
So it sounds like, Lori, that this was a unique experience, that you guys had not received your cash so quickly before in payments. To see those invoices, those paid invoices show up in your bank account so quickly. It's a great story. I take it this is a new experience for you guys.
It was. Normally we had about a 10 to 12 day turnaround. So this is helping quite a bit, yeah.
So with all the stories we're hearing about cash flow being kind of a big deal right now, amidst all these other challenges faced by our customers, no wonder it was a wonderful surprise.
And how has your time been with the collection experience otherwise? I know you have some outliers that are not enrolled in autopay that may do it in the future, but maybe not yet. How has your time spent with the new process? Has it saved you a lot of time with the billing and collections process on the revenue cycle side, or?
Not yet. We unfortunately, we switched over in June, and then we had our yearly fee increase, which started July 1st. So after we had entered in all of the information, of course, we had to get updated ACH forms sent out because of the fee increase. So then we've had to go in and do a lot of updating. So I'm hoping the next couple of months, though, I will see some extra time available in my schedule. So.
Well, to be fair, I can't take the blame for the fee increases, but we'll take the blame on the other part. That's wonderful to see, and I gotta think that even if you had the fee increases and you're collecting your old method, you would have spent a lot more time collecting by trying to cash those checks and not have as much cash in the bank. So that's really great to hear.
Yeah.
Can you guys talk for a moment about, I don't know, I would think that for the resident customer or their natural supports or responsible parties, that maybe security has been kind of part of the learning curve, or maybe a barrier to jumping in. Any comments on that? Has that been the case? Or are your resident customers feeling confident about e-payments today?
I haven't heard any concerns from our residents or families. So
That's great. So that, Robin, that must speak to the comfort level and confidence within e-payments right now, that we can maybe make that assumption that residents, resident customers and their natural supports are comfortable with e-payments. So why not give them the opportunity?
Oh, listen, I think, like I said in the very beginning, our residents move into the community and they're used to paying their bills before they leave the grocery store. They're used to paying their bills through a mortgage payment or through a rental in some way. And it's only when we brought them into the community did they take a step backwards in their payment processing. So it's really trying to keep them on the same path that they're used to, while enabling family members and other like-minded people that are, maybe paying the bill or covering some of their expenses, to give them the opportunity to pay as well. And that's one thing I'll say with ePay that's been very nice, is that if you have family members who are splitting those expenses by, children or other family members, it becomes very easy to where, again, hopefully Lori will start to reap the benefits here very soon of that kind of set it and forget it mindset, that even if there are two people paying that bill, we can split it and we know who's going to pay it every month. And that way they're always kept true to their finances. They're not going to be behind. They're not going to get surprise charges. And each family member with the security, security hasn't been an issue, which is great because that's the last thing you want to worry about. And so with that, the enablement of allowing multiple family members to pay on behalf of the family or the resident, those things are great. It's really just trying to keep the same opportunity that they had as a typical, person in their own community when they move into this community, have the same feeling and the same process.
And so,
Lori, do you believe that's true too?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
yeah.
So we're just including this ePay feature in our billing module. What are, like maybe, and Lori can speak to it too, but what are some other like processing fees? What kind of fees are involved in that, in using the system? And maybe Lori can speak to, fees that are imposed on the customer for ACH or credit card payments. I mean, that's kind of like, the part of this that doesn't always get talked about yet. It's part of the reality and the transparency of these systems. Maybe share a little bit between the two of you about what that looks like.
So Lori, if you want to go, I don't know if during your rate increase, did you include some of those costs into that rate increase to make sure you guys were kept whole, or how did you handle that?
We did not. That is a cost that we have chosen to absorb at this point. And we are not currently using the credit card option, so I really can't speak to that. We are just using the ACH option at this point. So.
Well, and groups like Lori and some other organizations, they use a surcharging feature. So a lot of people will use their bread and butter is really within the ACH, is where people like to live. But there are, again, thinking about the model where your residents have moved from and into your community, a lot of residents want to continue to use their credit card. And so there's several ways we can keep you guys whole on the credit card usage. Number one is adding surcharge, which basically means you're paying nothing for the credit card fee utilization and you're passing all those fees off onto your resident. And I don't know about you guys, but that happens every day, every time you buy tickets for concerts, even Chick-fil-A. If you don't use the Chick-fil-A app, you now get charged, which I found amazing. And so, they're really trying to streamline, all those fees are passed on to us as consumers in some way. And so it's a matter of, a lot of organizations have decided to include that fee into their rate increase. Or if they want to focus on ACH more like Lori and her organization, and then offer credit card, they do surcharging because again, that's not a fee that maybe you want to absorb, but you want to offer that out to your residents. So if they want to pay and, get those points for their airline tickets, they can do that. But then you're not penalized for that utilization of it. And we're
Right.
seeing more and more organizations go towards surcharging so that way they can give their residents those options.
Right. Well, and certainly, and if Lori can speak to this or not, but it feels like that there certainly is, I guess, the return on the investment, if you will, in efficiencies, where I would think that, individuals in Lori's positions or similar positions, among our senior living customers would be investing far less manual effort, in addition to the benefits of getting your cash faster. What can you guys talk about as far as kind of the efficiencies that happen with this ePay system? Putting you on the spot.
You kind of cut out there on me. I'm thinking.
Lori, I was just
the
asking
question
about,
was,
are there some added efficiencies that you guys are seeing with moving more towards e-payments versus the previous system?
I don't know that we've really had the time to explore that yet.
Still new.
Maybe down a little bit, yeah.
Several of our other groups that have been on since February, I think that's where you start to see the difference is that, you're not getting a check in the mail, you're not having to go post that in the system manually and then, do that little ring around the loop where you process that check through and then you see your money in several days later. One thing that I've heard from our communities is with the batch feature and the billing module that you can batch out, all your payments at once, those automatically get sent over for that auto pay deduction, which means that money will be in your bank the next day after those invoices has been charged for everyone who set up for auto pay. And then that returning back, which is different than probably what Lori you're used to too, is that posting to say, okay, the money's in the bank, I have to do it individual. With ePay and the billing module, you're able to just post that all at once. So meaning all those invoices that were sent out that have auto pay already selected for it, they come back in batch. So if you have, 100 of your 150, residents set up for auto pay, that's 100 less steps you have to do each, per month per resident, because you're not having to go in and do the work and post it and do those things. And so that's where I see, in the future, Lori, you can come back on and tell us later, but I see that being a massive benefit for you in the future, like it has been for a lot of our other communities.
That is nice. I do like that auto post feature. That does save time.
It's so funny because once we forget that we had to do that work, we forget it existed, right? So it becomes, oh, well, it's always been this easy. And then you go back and you go, oh my gosh, it wasn't that easy. I've had to open a check. I've had to figure out who this goes to. If they don't have the name written on there, I have to figure out whose last name could be Smith, and then go in and find that amount. Does the amount match or whatever? And so, and then if you have two family members splitting that bill, it becomes again more cumbersome. So I expect, Lori, that you'll find a lot more benefit in the future, and hopefully you will forget just how painful it was.
Lori, I'm going to put you on the spot again just for a moment. And, for any other senior living provider that's looking to move towards e-payments, what would be some, nuggets of advice that you would give them about the process and the benefits? For example, would you recommend it? And if you would, why would you recommend it? And what could they expect?
I would definitely recommend it. I think once you start seeing the cash coming in quicker or more timely, it's, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's just more beneficial to your day. You're not always having to go back and recheck to see who is paid, who hasn't paid. If everyone is signed up, there's some outliers that you need to clean up if services have changed throughout the month. But You know, all in all, I think it's going to be a really good system.
And Robin, what are you hearing from our other customers where, you know, if one of our participants is interested in you know, moving towards more e-payments, what have we learned so far that would be advisement to share?
We've learned that the communities that have offered ways for them to pay, they get paid faster, right? So that's one thing. And then also to Lori's point that, you know, family members, if they're set up for auto payments and they want to expect it, it becomes, you know, setting that expectation out of the gate is very nice to where if you know, bring in a new resident and say, you know, we're going to set you up for auto payment right out of the gate, that becomes an expectation. And those conversations become a lot easier. And so it's really about, you know, making a plan, I believe, internally, and that's something I've heard from a lot of our communities. Make a plan. How do you want to address your new residents that are coming on? Let's put them on auto payment. And if they can't, let's talk about why, right? Let's understand that. Or if they need to be billed twice a month, we can accommodate those things. But I'm learning that our communities, while, you know, it's a fine line between addressing your resident or your customer, as well as making sure you're getting paid for the services you're provided. And that's where I'm seeing that balance kind of shift a little bit. I believe that these communities are, you know, are starting to say, it's time for us to get our money in a timely fashion. It shouldn't be this hard. I can't walk out of a grocery store without paying for my groceries. Why should I be able to, you know, why should someone like Lori be calling these residents 30 days out of the 31-day month trying to get collections? And that's just not, it's just not the way it should be handled. And so that's what I'm hearing from our communities, is that there's been a little bit of a shift in their own mentality and their own worth, right? We're worth that money and we're worth collecting that money sooner. Because what Lori's experienced, where you have a great adoption rate, Lori, of a lot of your residents using the ePay solution. And what does that mean for the communities? That means that you can now predict your cash flow. Lori can actually go meet with their CFO next month and go, okay, by the 6th day of the month, we have 90% of our collections in. I got to think that's different than the way it's been in the past, and that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Because maybe you want to open a new community, maybe you want to add a new service. You can now do these things, which before it was a lot harder to predict your cash. So it becomes kind of fun money, right? You're able to see these things come in, a lot less work, and then again that mentality shift of the communities to say, this is our money. We need this to survive, just like they need us to survive. We need to rely upon each other more. And so that's where I believe, ePay is becoming a hotter topic because it's necessary.
So a question from a participant about just that. And I guess the question would probably be for Lori, and that would be, Lori, you mentioned that there's a learning curve at first for your resident customer, for your customers. How would you what was the biggest challenge within that learning curve for overcoming with your customers?
I think, first of all, it's the generation of the people we serve. They're not as comfortable with the electronic world as maybe their children are. So it was kind of I think there was a conversation between, probably between our residents and their families. And also on our form that we have them sign, we do have two options for them. One is they can check a box that says, I want to pay my statement in full every month, regardless of what that amount is. And then we also have the box that says, no, I only want you to take a certain dollar amount out every month. And I think that really helped with their comfort level, because they knew they could expect to see the same dollar amount every month.
Sure.
Come out. So the only issue was if they decide to add services or remove services, then they're having to re-sign a form, each time to either increase or decrease the amount of their ACH requests. So.
But it sounds like that was a helpful strategy for you in providing that little extra sense of comfort with moving to a new system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
And to Lori's point, which is great, that if, let's say you have your rent as part of that monthly fee, and that's what they want to have paid in full, and the other part, they want to go online to pay their bill, whether through a credit card or ACH, those options exist, which is really great about the ePay, is that even if they do auto charge that ACH or that credit card on a monthly basis, if there's ancillary services or other things that have occurred, costs that have been incurred, you can still go online and pay those bills. And so, our goal really on ePay is to give Lori her life back, give her, time back in her day to where you're not spending all your time collecting and posting things, to really make it seamless. But also to enable your community and your residents to control their finances more, meaning that if they want to go on and pay their bill, they can do that just by clicking a button. And it not be a burdensome lift to call Lori and go, hey, I need to pay my bill. So the more that we can enable these communities and the residents to enable them to pay their bill electronically or online and not have to interact with staff to do so, everybody wins. Because a lot of times people don't want to call to pay a bill because they don't want to talk to someone. Maybe they're having a bad day, maybe something's going on. And so it's really just about enablement, not just for the communities, but for the residents and their families.
Wonderful. Is there anything, Robin or Lori, that we haven't discussed that we should, introduce about this e-payment experience for the senior living resident customer? Or did we hit on all the important parts in our discussion?
I don't think there's anything we didn't touch.
I'll say there's one thing that I personally love about our solution that I think is a benefit is that deposits. And so if you haven't started collecting deposits through ACH or credit card, you can use that with our solution, which is great. So if someone doesn't bring a check and you need to take a deposit, you can still interact with that resident to keep their deposit. The other thing I kind of love, and Lori, I don't know if you've done this yet, is the refunds. So let's say someone does overpay, the ability to refund, $2.40 and that resident see that money back in their bank the next day. Those are all things that make everybody happy. It's a more cohesive experience whenever, if I call Lori and say, man, you guys overcharged me by $2.50, I sure didn't have that, then she can post that back to my account and I see that money the next day. It doesn't have to go through a controller. It doesn't have to go to a cut check situation. It becomes so much easier. And that's one of the features that I know, in the residential community, as you're trying to, get things done, those kind of things are kind of put off on the back burner a little bit, but those are the things that make your residents probably the most anxious. So those are some cool features that I personally just love that I do see value in, that maybe you haven't had to do that because Lori's probably a better biller than I ever was. And so, but if you ever run into issues, those things are really great because it improves the satisfaction of everyone.
Yeah. Wonderful. Let's end there. Thank you, Robin, and thank you, Lori, so much.
Thank you, Lori. It's so great
really
to have
appreciate you and Vista Prairie Communities as a customer, and thank you for joining us. I think this is just a really helpful discussion to get into more for our participants and listeners to these webinars on, what it is to introduce this e-payment solution at a senior living community or for a senior living organization. And I think it's really helped to hear, this discussion today on just how easy it is to not only put in place, but to manage, and the benefits that it offers, of course, the provider, but also the resident customers and their natural supports or responsible parties. Really, really helpful discussion. Thank you both so much for being a part of today's webinar. If anybody has any questions for Robin specifically, again, you can email Robin directly at rjameson@eldermark.com, or you can connect with me as well, and I can connect you to Robin directly. All right, and there is, Robin, is your contact information visible now on the screen?
It is, that's correct.
Great, so that's how to reach Robin. And again, thank you both for joining us. And for our participants, your questions and comments. In rounding things up today, just a reminder that our next Leadership Forum webinar will be August 10th. It's going to actually be on the second Wednesday in August because we've got some other commitments on the first Wednesday, so we're moving this to August 10th. Watch for the email blast, or you can certainly sign up at our webinars calendar on the eldermark.com website. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for your good work in service to each other and in service to your residents. And we will hopefully see you again next month. Thanks again to Lori and to Robin for being a part of today's webinar and the important content that they added to our discussion. Take care.